Good morning. This is Senator Black. Welcome to Focus on the News for May the 10th. Today, our topic will be Syria's triumphant return to the Arab League. We have a very honored guest, and Ambassador Sabah is the Syrian ambassador to the United Nations. Ambassador Sabah, welcome. We are very honored by your presence.
Thank you very much, Senator Black. It's a very good morning, and I'm honored also to have this interview with you.
Well, thank you. This is a very exciting time with Syria having been voted back into the Arab League after about 12 years. I think the nations of the Arab world have begun to realize that this decade-long series of wars and conflicts is very counterproductive, and I am just wondering what the reaction is on the street among what are the Syrian people saying about this?
Well, I think Syria have been placed in a very important place geographically and politically in the Arab world. So people in the Arab world always said that Syria is the heart of Arab world. And our role in the Arab League was very active. We are among the few nations who were establishing the Arab League, and we exercise our responsibility in this organization for decades. Unfortunately, the participations in the meetings for Syrian delegation was suspended in 2011. And since then, we have not participating in the discussions in the Arab Leagues and in the meetings. Today, we have a decision by the foreign ministers of the Arab League to invite Syria to resume its participations in the meeting. Frankly speaking, this is a result of the diplomatic movement which has been taken during the last several months, including the efforts made by Syria to rebuild its relations with the Arab world. We witnessed the visit of His Excellency President Assad to United Arab Emirates, to Sultanate Oman, and we also have the visits of our foreign ministers to Saudi Arabia, to Egypt, to Algeria, to Tunisia. And then we also have an important meeting in Amman, Jordan, with the participation of our foreign minister, with the other four foreign ministers from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Iraq, and Jordan. This movement aimed at rebuilding our relationship with the Arab countries and to strengthen the relations and to reactivate the joint Arab efforts and to find solutions for all problems facing the Arab world. And I think the developments are going in the right directions, and we hope that things will be going better in the upcoming times.
Yeah, there seems to be a very exciting time for Syria, and that the reason for that was that we had rather few American troops in Africa or in the Middle East. But I remember thinking one time I was trying to get a flight out, and I noticed on the flight board all of the flights that were available to Amman, Jordan, to Riyadh, to various places, in the Middle East. And I thought, you know, I wish if I just had a few extra days, I would fly to one of the countries over there and I would just travel. And I think back in those days, the Middle East was at peace. People were happy, they were prosperous. And I think that as an American, I'd have been welcomed. People would have said, oh, you know, the Americans are our friends. And it's such a shame what has happened. Now, this is not the first time that the United States and the West has tried to overthrow Syria. The CIA overthrew Syria in 1949. And I think to some extent, when we began fostering unrest in Syria, I think there was a feeling that among the Arab countries that, well, Syria is a country of just 23 million people, and now the entire Western world, with all of their military and economic might, they've turned on them, so there's no hope for Syria. And I think that would have been a very rational approach, and I think many of them probably were willing to cut ties with Syria because they thought there's no hope. But Syria has amazed the world. And here you have a nation of 23 million people who managed to stand on their feet and withstand 2/3 of the world's military and industrial might. And they have refused, the people of Syria have refused to have outsiders impose an unpopular government on them, made up either of Al-Qaeda or ISIS, or they're all combined, the whole group of terrorist groups that have opposed the people of Syria. And it is quite a miracle that I have watched literally from the very beginning, before it was declared a war. And it's magnificent. But it's interesting watching the changes taking place within the sort of the grand strategy of Saudi Arabia, which has now agreed to this Chinese brokered peace with Iran. And it seems like peace is breaking out all over the Middle East, doesn't it, Mr. Ambassador?
I think I share your feeling and your sentiments. But let me first emphasize on a few points. First, that there are no problems between the Syrian people and the American people.
Yes.
The problem is in the wrong policies of the American administrations. You know, American people are great nations, and Syrian people were always looking at these great nations. And frankly speaking, we have quite an important community, Syrian community, immigrated to United States since 1915, 1920 and on. And they were very important contributions to the American society. So I think what we witness in the Middle East in general, and in Syria in particular, is the wrong policies which adopted by the American administrations toward the issues related to our regions and related to our countries. For example, I have to mention the American position toward the Arab-Israelis conflict, you know, and also the military invasions to Iraq, and later on the interventions in the Syrian internal affairs including by what's so-called these policies of regime change. And later on, the illegal military presence over our territories with, a pretext which is far from legal obligations, including UN Charter and international law. So these, let's say, wrong policies resulted in a situation where we were differ as a two countries. So what is required now is that these wrong policies to be corrected. So, and in the very front, we are always saying that the American withdrawal from our territories and ending this illegal, military presence in Syria is a prerequisite to any, further or potential developments to our relationship. Second, I also want to mention the unilateral coercive measures, the American sanctions, yes, which is imposed on the Syrian people. I have to tell you that these sanctions multiplies the suffering of the Syrian people. A few days ago, we have discussions in the Security Council on the humanitarian issues, and I was very loud and clear on raising this concern. And I said that despite the fact that the United Nations and the international humanitarian partners are invest in to alleviate the humanitarian situation, but the sanctions, the unilateral coercive measures imposed by United States and the European Union is multiplied the suffering and exacerbated the situations. So here also it is very important, and it's a key that these sanctions is lifted. During the earthquake and after, the American administration issued a general license, which they said that it's contained some exemptions. I have to tell you, on the ground, practically, we do not see any differences. Here, I might give an example to what I said. We have an important hospital in Damascus. This hospital put it on the American sanctions. And it's really astonishing to have such a humanitarian object like hospital put it on the sanctions.
Are you saying that the hospital itself is under sanctions?
Yes, the hospital itself on the sanction.
I had never heard that. That's yes, remarkably cruel, yes, that you would punish, yes, sick people.
And in this hospital, we have an important equipment, MRI, which need to have a maintenance. So we contacted the American company to have this maintenance, and they were not able to do so because the hospital is under the sanction. So this is an example on how these sanctions affecting the humanitarian situation in Syria, how it's affecting the situations related to the health of the Syrian people. So these sanctions has to be lifted immediately.
Yes, I wonder, when this terrible earthquake hit in Syria and in Turkey, I think the normal inclination of the world is to say, put aside all differences. We have to help people who are who are buried under the rubble, who are suffocating, who are dying of thirst. And I think that was the reaction of almost all of the world. But I remember the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, just making some remarkably callous remarks that just showed just sort of a complete inhumanity towards the suffering. And I wonder whether our reaction to the earthquake might have had something to do with the shift in sentiment within the Arab League towards saying this is just too much. It's time that we restore relations with Syria. We can't remain a part of this type of cruel behavior towards a nation that's suffering. And certainly the American people, as you know, the American people would have immediately tried to aid Syria. But the American people don't really have a voice in these things. They're decided by the State Department, by the Central Intelligence Agency. Did you get the impression that perhaps the other Arab nations were influenced by the American callousness towards Syria in its time of need?
Senator Black, the Arab assistance and the other assistance from the friendly country were crucial for Syria to face such a natural disaster after the aftermath of the earthquake on 6th of February. That's for sure. But also the efforts of Syria, government, people, civil societies, and others inside, despite the fact that we do not have the basic equipments, the heavy machineries, people were working in their hands to save others' lives. The first 5 days were each and every minute were very crucial in the rescue process. And search and rescue process need equipments, and unfortunately these equipments were not there, and the assistance provided on that were very limited. So Syrian people and the governments and others inside Syria try to mobilize their efforts and to help on that process. So this is very important. Second, I think despite the fact that the United States and other Western countries saying that humanitarian issues should be separated from politicizations, but we witnessed a clear politicizations on that, on facing that earthquake and the what is resulted after the earthquake. And I have to tell you that things are not finished yet, despite the fact that we faced the most urgent needs for the people after the earthquake, but facing the broader repercussions of the earthquake is still there. We have more than 200,000 people homeless. So we need to get them back to their houses. We have more than 1,500 buildings affected partially or completely, severely by this earthquake. So the infrastructure, the basic services, all affected by this, and this need an important investment to rebuild these basic services and to enable those people to go back to, a normal life and to safe houses.
Well, we certainly hope that that the efforts can continue, and that I wish I could tell you that that there was movement in the United States towards eliminating these very inhumane Caesar sanctions, but there's this element, this institutional element of embittered people within the State Department, the Central Intelligence Agency, where they just don't function as ordinary, compassionate human beings, and it is so easy to impose sanctions. You have high-priced lobbyists, and they work on behalf of various groups, and they go around to congressmen and they get their signatures on some petition or co-sponsor some piece of legislation, and the next thing you have sanctions, and there's no debate, there's no consideration. It's, I won't say it's a payoff, but in a very indirect sense, they know that they're going to get political contributions if they'll simply sign on as co-sponsors. And then on the other end of these sanctions, I saw for myself when I was in Syria for the first time in 2016 and visited hospitals, and it was clear that even though in a hyper-technical sense we had exemptions for medical supplies, as a practical matter, the sanctions are so comprehensive and so difficult to sort out in detail